Hey everybody, so today I'm going to make a video on how to apply lighting to anything you draw, right? And so this means if you're drawing like a flat object like a cartoon, or you're planning drawings, you can show extra dimension and depth and form on these things if you know how to put a light on there and create highlights, shadows, and things like that, okay? And so what we're going to do is we're going to draw Kirby, okay? And so just sketch yourself a circle here. That's going to be his body, all right? And then we're going to put an oval here. And when you do this, sketch lightly, because you'll want to erase some of these lines when you're all said and done, so the construction lines don't show up through your drawing, all right? And so then he's got a leg right here, he's running, all right? And then he has an arm back here, so like his back arm behind him, and then he's actually, I think he's jumping running, right? And so I'm going to create that arm up there, so, okay? So that's his overall body and his parts, all right? So we're going to light this from up here, so the light's shining down on Kirby just like so, okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and put his eyes and his mouth in there, just so we do that, we have it, okay? So he's kind of leaning a little bit, he's kind of looking upward, all right? So I'll position those right there. And I'm going to come back and kind of detail that out later, right? And also, there's going to be a line here because there's going to be a cast shadow like he's jumping up in the air, okay? Now, the main thing about this is when you put a light on something, okay, this is kind of the gist of the whole thing. So the light shading, or the value, the light value, okay, it goes on the area nearest the light. Now, if you were to take this drawing and say, okay, so the sun's hitting here, right? So I shade light to dark all the way across Kirby like that, right? That's not correct, simply because if you did that over the whole shape, it would still appear flat, okay? And so what you have to do is you have to apply that lighting to each piece on its own according to where the light's hitting it. And if you do that, then the overall object will have a 3D form to it. And let me kind of show you what I mean. Here's one I've done previously, okay? So as you can see, you know, light's hitting each one of these in its own way. Some are similar. And when you get that, then the parts kind of stand off of each other, and they have depth. Some are behind, some are in front, stuff like that. With a line drawing, that's kind of difficult to show if it gets real complicated, but if you have the shadowing on there, then that makes that happen, okay? And so all we're going to do, okay, we're going to use a set of values to do this, all right? So we're going to have the highlight, which is the brightest, where the sun's really, or the light's hitting on it. You're going to have the middle, okay? You're going to have the dark value, and then you're going to have what they call the core shadow, and that's the darkest. So that would be where the light's either not getting at all, or it's the very least amount of light, okay? And so when we start to shade these, we're going to use a highlight. We're going to use two values, highlight and middle value, to start to shade the object, okay? And so what I'm going to do here is over on the right side, so the light's hitting the left side of Kirby's arm right there, okay? And so I'm going to start to shade that in with a middle value, about 50%, okay? And what I'm going to do is on the area that the light's hitting, okay, I'm going to leave that open, or the highlight, all right? Now the reason why the highlight doesn't go around is because you can see here if I draw a line where the light beam is going, once this shape changes direction, this side of the part of that, or the side of that shape, doesn't get light hitting it directly, so we leave that shaded. Okay? And they all work like that. So if we're going to do this leg down here, okay? And so if I come down here, light's going to hit this edge, right? So what I'm going to do, same thing, I'm going to shade, and if light's here, then I'm going to bring, because this turns a corner, I'm going to bring my shading right about there. And so my highlight is going to be more or less right there, okay? You wouldn't bring it around here so much because the light's, in this version, the light doesn't bend around the corner. It's just going straight by it, okay? And so the arm and this foot, or this leg and this foot, all kind of have the same scenarios. So same thing here. The light, if I come across, right, the line's hitting there and there. That's where the light's going by it. So the shading is going to be in this area here, because the light's hitting it, but as it goes by the object and that thing turns the corner, the light stops hitting it, so we're just going to leave that in the shadow. Okay? And then the same thing over on this arm over here. You draw that line, the light's hitting this top edge of it, but now it turns the corner, okay? And so you're going to leave it with the shading. Just like that. Okay? So just remember, if your shape, for this version, if the shape turns a corner and the line doesn't hit that surface, you're not going to color it in, right? And the way I do it, I don't draw all these light ray lines on here. What I typically do is I come in with my pencil and I use that as a light beam, and so the light's the axis right there, and so what I do is I turn it. And so I come around objects. I'm like, oh, that thing turns the corner there and it goes back that way, so no light, right? That goes that way, so no light, right? That's how you figure that out. Let's go ahead on Kirby here. Let's go ahead and draw him a tongue, like the little shape is his tongue, okay? Put that middle value in there, and then go ahead on his eyes, go ahead and put the middle value down the bottom. He's got his pupils are white in this drawing, okay? So now, we've got the shading and all the individual parts. Now, the body, okay? And so, same thing, I'm going to draw that line, right? So the light basically goes to there, and then it starts to turn the corner, so that's shaded area, right? I'm going to draw a line there. The light stops there, turns the corner, so that's the zone it's going to shade in. But when you have something that's round or something that's got a direction going, what I like to do when I shade with a contour motion. And what I mean by contour is it follows the shape, right? And so instead of shading, what I want to do is instead of shading Kirby across like this, right, kind of flattish, what I'm going to do, the one thing is the highlight here is going to be like a crescent moon shape. So you can kind of, if you want to draw that boundary up here, that's where the lighting is going to end and the shading starts, right? And then when I shade it, I'm going to use like a circular direction, okay? And when you do this, okay, so if you've ever seen like a globe, right, or like a line drawing of a globe, you'll notice if the lines make it round, okay? And so what happens is when you shade this, right, I'm going to make those straight. Those could actually be curved a little bit, right? And as they go to each side of the axis, right, so I'll shade straight across where I'm at the middle of the globe, which is Kirby's body, right? And then as I go this way, I start to curve that until I get out here and it matches the curve, right? And so this way, the curve flips. And so as I go this way, I'm going to put some shaded lines like that, right? And so what that does is that bolsters the idea that Kirby's round and not just flat, right? We can do it down here as well. But if you want to boost the roundness of an object, like if it's round, you know, on Kirby's leg, what I could have done is right there, I could have come across, and you can still do it, you can add to it, right? I can come across like that. You know, this arm curves around like that, so you can come in and make those lines. Same thing here, it curves that way. So I could use that curve. Same thing here. This thing's really kind of round like here, so it'd be straight in the middle, right? But as I go this way, I try to follow this curve over here. Okay? And if you add that to it as well, that's another thing you can do to boost the round. And you can see right there that definitely gave it some roundness, okay? And so that's the initial set of values. When we do these, we're going to use, to start out, we're going to use these three values. So we're going to do light, middle, dark, right? So we've just done the light value and the middle value. And the reason why I shade in the light value even where the dark value is going to be is because the middle value is under there, and it just helps me to build it up and not just kind of like throw down like a value that doesn't really make sense here, okay? And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back up to his arm, okay? And then I'm going to start to put more pressure right here. All right. And then what I'm going to do is if I go this direction, I'm going to take pressure off the pencil to where it fades together. So the goal is you want it to be like a smooth transition, right? But you want to be able to see a difference between that and that. They're pretty close, but you want to be able to see a difference. This is real obviously different because it's the light's hitting it. You would right here want to kind of do the same thing. Take some pressure off and see if you can fade that out smoothly, because if you don't, it winds up looking like it's kind of like a block, right? You have this value and then blammo, hard edge right there. So you'd have value here, a hard edge right there. Looks almost like a tombstone, right? So the goal as you get your values in there is you want to do a smooth transition. So like that, right? And so we'll come down here, we'll do the same thing. We'll start on this side right here, and we're going to go that way, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that dark. But as I start to get towards the middle right there, I'm going to start to fade it out because I don't want to bring the dark all the way over, because the closer it gets to this side, the more it lightens up, right? But make sure that you get a value in there, right? It's going to be the dark value. Make sure you get that value in there where it's different than that, okay? And so you'll do the same thing on all the parts, right? So what I'll do over here on his arm is I'll start pretty dark. As I come up towards that value I've already got in there, I'm just going to take pressure off, and then I'm going to try and blend this out a little bit here. Same thing here, I'm going to try and blend this out a little bit here. Smooth transition. If you do that, I'll look around, okay? And so I'm just going to I'm going to work through this and this right here, and then we'll go on to the next part. So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to follow that curve. I'm going to kind of put that dark value right there, and then what's going to happen is I'm going to continue across the shape, but I'm just going to take the pressure off a little bit just so it blends smoothly, okay? And then same thing on Kirby's body right here. This is a little trickier. I'm going to kind of approach this from a bunch of different directions because I'm really coming across this right here. And actually on Kirby right here on the body, what's happening is wherever this highlight ends, we're going to start the dark part right here. So the dark part's going to fit kind of in here. Now I'm going to draw that boundary so I can see where it's going, but I'm going to smooth it out here in a second. So I'm just going to bring it like that, right? And then what I do is I'm going to come back to the edge here, and it's going to come out a little bit more, but I'm going to try and blend the edge. And so it looks a little weird right now, but I'm going to patch it up, okay? And then same thing. So here we're going to darken up, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and start to work my core darkness, okay? And so that's 100% pressure. So I'm going to put 100% pressure in the mouth here. And then as I come towards the front where the tongue is, light's starting to get in there. And so on that part, I'm gonna blend it out to that darker value like that, right? And I can make this darker using another color. In fact, that's what I did on the other one. But for right now, I'm going to establish that core by just using 100% pressure, okay? And the same thing with his eyes, right? So what I'm going to do here, his eyes are basically black down here if you see a cartoon of them. So I'm going to put 100% pressure to push that value in there, okay? Like that. All right. And so you can also down here, you can go ahead, you want to widen that a little bit, and you can go ahead and use the dark value here. Now it does lighten up as you go out this way because the light comes around, but that's pretty, it almost looks like a comet, right? Okay. And so once I've got that, I'm going to go ahead and start to apply the core shadows here, and this is how this looks. So I'm going to do the arm up here, okay? So what happens is when you do the core value, I'm going to come in with that 100% pressure. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line right here, okay? But what I've done is I've left this part of the arm as the dark value. I'm not going to color the core value there. I'll explain why here in a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that line, and then I'm going to make like a bent triangle, like a curved triangle piece like that, okay? So you'll want to make one of those on each piece, and it's going to follow the curve of that part. So on the leg down here, line, right? Stays pointed at the bottom, and then it curves up here. And it's got an edge on it. It's kind of like a triangle. Same thing over here. Now this one may hide behind the foot, and that's okay. But just you want to get that core shadow there, and you'll see this will start to even look more 3D when you do it. Okay, so same thing here on the foot, right? I'm going to go and make that line like so, right? And then this is going to be like a backwards crescent moon. So it kind of curves out a little bit, but then it points again. And if you do that, now you've established all three of those values, okay? And then same thing here, what you do, and we're going to do one on Kirby here, but same thing here, what you do is you come off that core shadow just a little bit, with some pressure just to feather it out a little bit, just to soften it up. And as you go, you can adjust things, but that's how you put in those 4 values. And they should all blend together. There should be a smooth transition if you can, because Kirby is a round object, so he's not blocky. Okay. Now when you do the body up here, what you're going to do is same thing. You're going to draw. We're going to start here where the light stops, right? And I'm going to draw that line that follows the curve, okay? And then right here, this is a very thin crescent moon shape. It does not get wide. I'll tell you why here in a second, okay? So now he's got all his values in there, okay?